A melancholy slice of life piece exploring the immigrant disillusionment of moving abroad for that it's just like in the pictures, perfect, social media endorsed, curated, dreamlike reality. Amidst the flow of descriptive observations of the various objects cluttering the protagonist's life come sharp one-liners about the volatile reality. Perfection split into the brilliant sections of the imperfect, the perfect, the remote, and the future follows the lives of Anna and Tom, a digital nomad couple who hate the term, loses it, creatives rather, who moved to Berlin back when it's not quite trendy yet. Amidst assuring their family that they are indeed capable of a sustainable income minus the tax, which they don't say, they strive to find something in Berlin. Find what? Themselves? How cliche. Rather, they seek to find in that endless stream of Photoshop and clicking and playing around with cursors and shrinking and enlarging and playing around with things that don't quite feel like adult reality and like real life, and learning the internet in a time when it has just come around, when it has just begun to develop. They search for something and they hope or fervently wish and dream that this would be the case, that Berlin, that city with that vast unexplored potential, Berlin, that buzzing, brilliant city that has, that back home, that vague term we're setting aside, has nothing on. They spend days holed up in trendy cafes behind their laptops amidst a wave of immigrants, amidst this expanse of something that's rapidly developing along with them, something that's growing. Those people, those expats, those immigrants who don't quite speak German, who are from some cozy European country, who are of course different from those other immigrants that the German government hustles into public housing and tries to forget about. And of course they will speak out about this, of course they'll join the massive wave of protests, but it's really how happy they are to be here, to be snorting lines of something illegal, those substances, and trying something radical, and joining all of these protests and developments, and how unique, how new, how ideal their life is. Ideal, we keep coming back to this word because perfection. Perfection, of course, that's the name of the novel, right? What they're doing is perfection. Surely it can't be described any other way, or so it seems. Of course, the scorn, the snobbery of that settled life, we're not judging, of course not, but we, like us, those people back from where we came, which by the way is never explicitly told because clearly they abandoned that concept the minute they cross foot across the border in a country that's not so far away. We could never be like that, having kids, settling down, having a steady office job, what, talking with the same people you've talked to your entire life? Of course not. That's not us, but we're totally not judging. We totally don't think we're better. And then the years. The waves of people coming and going eventually just seems to become going. And that dreaded term that they don't really wish to admit, but in fact they contributed to, gentrification, and those independent arts scenes becoming some mass corporate gallery, and suddenly they're in their 50s or nearing them, and well, they're not quite hip and cool enough, and they're not quite on the art scene, and somehow the quality of life is just so expensive, and aren't apartment prices crazy because, well, Europe, right? We've all seen the change, and oh dear, because even though their income seems to be growing, their lives just don't change and their expenses just don't shift. And that ideal freelancer dream of, well, what, having your own business and working for the sake of working and just, you know, managing to do all those cool things you dreamed of doing, like travel, it's not that it's unattainable, it's just not quite so appealing anymore, especially not with the level of cash flow they're experiencing and plans that seem to go awry. They make plans, they lease their apartment, yes, that perfect apartment with which perfection started, with the description of, right? Those endless sunshine-filled moments and the furniture and the beautiful plant jungle and whatever. Yes, they're forced to lease that very apartment and they go abroad for long periods of time. And yet somehow they always manage to come back. It's strange, but Berlin seems to have a grip on them and they don't want to admit that influence. Everything becomes repetitive in the creative life to the point of, or maybe they should look for a corporate job. Anna and Tom seem inseparable. Even when we learn about their somewhat awkward intimate life, they still do everything together. They're there together through those hours of work over instant noodle dinner and boxes of takeout piling up and the dust that collects in their also beautiful, brilliant apartment. They're there throughout together as one character. And of course, they're the creative soulmates, right? The freelancers who just get it and they couldn't have lived life any other way. And she just gets me and he just gets me. But somehow, more than being for each other, more than complementing each other, rather there seems to be a routine in this, and they don't want to admit it. But yeah, their relationship really isn't that creative. Oh, the horror of not being creative in every single sphere of your life, and suddenly it just seems like they're mirroring each other and perfection blends two characters into one. It's always Anna and Tom felt this, Anna and Tom did that. It's never Anna did this and Tom felt that, or Tom did this and Anna felt that. No, they're always together. And it's strange that that's the case because perfection ought to be a character-driven novel when Anna and Tom occupy so much of the space, but yet it never is, and neither is it a plot-driven novel. Rather, it's moment after moment, event after event. Time is both infinite and also limited as the novel develops onward, and reading it, you never quite feel your own sense of time acutely because sometimes it feels like you've been reading for hours and you've read like 10 pages, and other times you're just like, what? I've skipped halfway across the novel without noticing. I was so absorbed and so immersed. And yes, like the structuring, it's extremely uneven. The pacing more so, the grinding, the halting, the renewing, the continuing, the perpetuating. Endless flow that never quite seems to flow the same. In a way, this mirrors much of the freelancer world. When you're independent and left to your own scheduling devices, this is how time feels. And bizarrely, reading all about their life so completely, and yet never quite immersed in their life, you just feel as if you yourself are not that interested because their life is really not that special or interesting, bizarrely. Like, it's nothing you're particularly eager to pursue. It feels more like an endless feed of social media that you're scrolling and you're scrolling and you're trying to find something and you're trying to learn something and you just can't stop. More than a novel to be interested in or to utterly adore, it's a novel to think about because it really truly is a slice of life, some 30 years, and it's something that just inevitably prompts you into self-reflection. I think the aptest comparison I have for this is when you're on social media and you see something and you go down a rabbit hole of trying to learn about that one person and you're clicking and being redirected and scrolling, endlessly scrolling back to their first post and seeing the way that their tone changes, their life changes as they become less of a, oh look family, here's a new update, and more of a blogger and more of a, this is my curated life that nobody's ever going to talk about how curated this is. And you realize just how much life is like on social media. Life is even when you're outside of social media, because even when they're not actively thinking about creating that perfect Pinterest-esque reality, they seem to be creating that perfect Pinterest-esque reality, or at least aspiring to. So much of this is the realization that it's not that they're consumed by social media when they scroll their phone, it's that they're consumed by social media beyond their phone in the things that they think they want, in the things that they think they wish for. And it's a terrifying realization that so much of them is so much like us. Yes, perfection really does feel like that, and some of it is definitely on purpose because ends look back to beginnings and the novel ironizes itself, and so many things are left open-ended and appealing and alluring because of course you want to go back. That's what the algorithm is there to make you do. Of course you want to log back into the app after like who knows how many years and who knows how many minutes, right? But it's that eerie realization that, ooh, I really shouldn't be doing this, and yet. Perfection thus has a really truly unique environment. And I just think that this is a more fine example of the internet novel than any of the so-called internet novels that you've seen recommended. And it's converse, of course, it's slightly perverted that this is the case, because it really is not about that. It really is not about the internet. But for me, like, I just couldn't help but see how much of a role, how influential the internet has played in their life, just how much it has shaped them in so many different ways that you don't even realize first glance. And as someone who spends a lot of time on social media, a lot of different ways from Anna and Tom, many of this still resonated with me. But like I said, this is more about thinking and more about self-introspection rather than necessarily following their lives. And I also think that because of that, is for a particular type of mood and for a particular type of experience. The immigrant experience, sure, maybe the creative experience, the freelancer experience, the left to your own devices when you're not financially secure and you don't have like a, you know, like a trust fund or whatever in your name. It's also a maybe I should spend less time on social media, I need to stop but I can't type of experience. So I think in many ways there are certain atmospheres and certain settings in which you can find yourself, just like Anna and Tom, but really it's just such a curated reality, such a performance, so much of it in perfection, particularly so much of it in our own lives. Social media is always a performance, but then we start to cross the boundaries between when our own life becomes a performance, and you know, it's just also meta, I suppose. And perfection just shows that even when you're not even truly actively engaged in the performance, you still are, and it really makes you think, is there a unique experience in the world? We think we're oh so quirky, every snowflake that falls from the sky is unique and so are people, but in reality that's not really the case. There doesn't seem to be a single unique experience, and it's worrying and disconcerting and anxiety inducing because, oh dear, we are so eager to pursue the untrodden path, and look at me, I'm traveling to places where no one has ever been, except even when you think you're treading the untrodden path, you're still just walking along in some other steps in some distant figure that you aspire to because you want to be not like everybody else. And the people before you have also thought, oh, look at me, I'm so different from the people back home, I'm pursuing these same different experiences, so really you're not quite that unique. And it just makes you spiral in so many ways to think, what do I bring to this life? What makes my identity, and why do I want to make the identity that I want to make? And I suppose that's a very cynical take to see people as not quite unique, to see so many people as consumed by creating a fake identity that's not really their true selves. And I think that perfection can be read in another way, in a cheerful look at this digital nomad couple, look at how much they've accomplished in their life type of way. But maybe I'm just not maybe that's just not the type of reading that I got from this novel. Maybe you'll get something completely different. So if you've read it, as always, eager to learn your thoughts. But I think what's interesting is the changes in perspective. It's always told from third-person narration, but sometimes it's clearly more from the narrator, from an outsider's point of view, and sometimes it's clearly more from Anna and Tom and the way that they see themselves. And even the shifts in tone, I think perfection is perfectly, yes, perfectly, I aware just how much of it can be ironized, just how much of it is, well, not really what they think that they're doing or what they want to make it seem like they're doing. And even though the writing was not always perfectly delivering, there were lines of startling beauty that just shocked me out of my reverie and made me admire Latronico, or Latronico, I don't know, as a writer, because they were just so apt, so shocking, and just so different, from the comparisons of cafes dotted along a riverbank like rosary beads to this. Anna and Tom weren't free to be themselves, or rather they weren't free to reinvent themselves amidst a string of romanticization of their very lives. Those clips, those sarcasms, I think perfection is worth reading just for Latronico's writing alone oftentimes, and truly it's a novel that's so slim, so really you should definitely spare the time, but yet so vast and so consuming. So this one's for you if you make time, which I think you ought to, if you have ever experienced or felt the moods I've described, or feel, or need to feel. So that's my take with perfection. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico, printed by my favorite Fitzcarraldo editions. I'm a big fan. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next week.